Madam President, from day one, this administration, President Trump and congressional Republicans have attacked rules that protect working families. Just 1 hour after taking the oath of office, President Trump indefinitely suspended a plan to make it easier for working families to be able to afford a mortgage. 10 days later, he issued an executive order requiring agencies to identify and eliminate 2 rules for every 1 new rule they issued. And that was just the beginning. Congressional Republicans spent the first few months of the year eliminating rules that protect workers, students, and families. They killed a rule that required companies in dangerous industries to track when their employees were injured. They even killed a rule that helped keep guns out of the hands of the mentally ill. These rules all had one thing in common. They all made sure that the public health, safety, and security of Americans came ahead of industry's bottom line. Oh, and there was a second thing in common for these rules. Industry hated them. With President Trump in office and Republicans in the majority in Congress, those industries were ready to cash in, and they had their wish list ready. Although the attack on public-centered rules has increased in intensity during this administration, I just want to say it's not new. Powerful companies have long understood that the fight in Congress is just the first of many battles. If big business can't weaken or kill bills that they don't like in Congress, they turn their attention to the agencies tasked with implementing those laws, working to tilt the rulemaking process in their favor. And they don't waste any time getting started. Long before rules are even announced, giant corporations intensely lobby agencies, setting up meeting after meeting to make sure that the agencies will prioritize corporate interests. As rules wind their way through the rulemaking process, the lobbying intensifies. Companies bury agencies in mountains of expensive industry-funded comments. They cite sham research and bought and paid for experts. And if at the end of that long, arduous process, a strong, public-centered rule is published anyway, those companies sue, looking to busy judges who are unfamiliar with the issues to overturn the decision of expert agencies. There's no 2 ways about it. The rulemaking process is broken. There are far too many opportunities for giant corporations to influence the rulemaking process, and there are far too few opportunities for meaningful public participation. But Republicans don't want to fix this problem. No way, no. They want to make the rulemaking process work even better for their corporate buddies and work even harder against American families. And boy, did they pick the right person to lead the charge. President Trump nominated Neomi Rao, a law school professor who advocates for weakening and handcuffing agencies. Picked her to run the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs, known as OIRA. OIRA is a small, little-known, but intensely powerful office that reviews economically significant federal rules. Before the Department of Labor can issue a rule on workplace safety, for example, or the Environmental Protection Agency can issue a rule restricting water pollution, or the Department of Education can issue a rule protecting students from shady for-profit colleges, that rule must be submitted to OIRA to sign off. If OIRA doesn't like the rule, it can change the rule or hold it up for months at a time. And when a rule finally makes it out of the OIRA ringer, chances are that any changes will be slanted in favor of corporate interests. Professor Rao's views of agencies make her the wrong person to lead this powerful agency. She believes that judges should pay less attention to the conclusions of experts at federal agencies. And Professor Rao is especially critical of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB. This is the agency that has forced the biggest corporations and banks in this country to return more than $12 billion directly to Americans they have cheated, and hold big banks like Wells Fargo accountable when they have ripped off customers. Professor Rao says that the CFPB's problem is its independence. Seriously, maybe Professor Rao thinks that that little agency just doesn't kowtow enough to the big banks. If Professor Rao had her way, independent agencies like the CFPB would be handcuffed by OIRA, the agency that she wants to run. It is no surprise that the Wall Street giants who've been trying to take down the CFPB for years love Professor Rao's views. If confirmed, Professor Rao will be perfectly positioned to put her theories into practice. She will head the Trump administration's efforts to toss out the rules that big businesses don't like. She will determine whether rules go through the slanted OIRA process. She will have the chance to gut strong rules that help working families. The rulemaking process is broken, and there's a lot that Congress should be doing to fix it, to try to make it work better for people all across this country, for workers and for families and for people who get cheated. But the Trump administration, they want to go in the opposite direction. Any senator who believes that corporations need more say in the rulemaking process should vote for Neomi Rao. But anyone who thinks that we're supposed to be here to work for the American people will vote to reject her nomination.